Hello, I'm Jack Mitchell and welcome to People in Perspective. Joining me today is Tom Mitchell, an Air Force veteran, retired professor, and my grandfather. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here today.
Of course, let's get started.
Okay.
So what made you interested in going into the Air Force in the first place?
Well, I've always wanted to fly, and I finished my first year of college and was looking around for other opportunities, and jobs on the line and other things didn't seem to be too good. The Air Force promised me a career if I wanted it, as well as education, so it seemed like a good move to do.
And what did you do while you were there?
I was a computer specialist, mainly on a flight simulator. So they taught me how to fly as well as work on computers and other various equipment that supported the flight simulator. Today you would probably call it the ultimate arcade game. Back then it was a job.
And then what did you do after the Air Force that kind of came from what you did in the Air Force?
Well, since I had a history in computers already, and it was early in the industry in a sense, I hired in with a company called ITEL, not Intel, but ITEL. They did large mainframe computers, and I was hired in there to work, and they moved me up to Saginaw for a little while and then moved me down to Ann Arbor, and we worked on computers that were pretty close to the size of this room.
And what companies had those computers at the time?
IBM, National Advanced Systems, Intel, Hitachi. There was quite a few in the large mainframes at that time. It was a pretty good industry. We were IBM's largest competitor, and yet they made in a week what we made in a year. And yet we were still the largest. Did
you work all over the country or just in Michigan?
Well, originally I worked in Michigan, and then I covered 4 or 5 states. I was a regional specialist at one point. So at times I would have to travel, and then I'd go out to California and help them troubleshoot the line and the computers and what was going wrong with them and maybe what was going right with them, and try to put those practices out in the field.
And then, so after that, what did you do after you worked for that company?
I worked for them for almost 20 years, and during a downsize, there was an opportunity to go back to college and finish my degree. I had never quite finished it. I was close, but never got it done. So I went and finished my bachelor's, and then I was working at Eastern Michigan University teaching some classes, and they offered me the master's and eventually the PhD while I was teaching. So I was teaching various classes and then working on the degree on the side.
What were you teaching?
I taught various classes: information security classes, Microsoft project management, tech management. It depended on what we needed at the time and what department needed some help. I would write the courses and then turn them over to other instructors to teach. And then, of course, rewrite them or update them every year because this particular field changes constantly.
And what was your degree in?
My bachelor's degree was in technology management, and then information security for the master's. And then the PhD was technology.
And you were able to get that education from the Air Force?
Well, that got me started. So initially, we had Ataris and Radio Shack computers that, your phone is more powerful than the mainframes that I worked on back then. So the Air Force got me started with electronic training and troubleshooting and how to look at it. When there was something wrong, you had to make, you should make notes, but you should also take a look at it and say, this is what's happening, and then what's not happening. And there's a lot of pieces, and back when I started, the machines would fail 3 or 4 times a day, and that was expected. But then there's a term called mean time between failure. They wanted what they call 4 nines, 99.99 uptime, which means the machine had to give the appearance of being up and running all the time. There's a lot of pieces, of course, so the machine may be up and running, but a piece going into it, feeding it, if you will, from the customers may not work. And so everybody was like, your machine is down, and I'm going, no, machine is running fine, there's other components. So you had to look at that to find out who or what was causing the problem. It could be yours, it could be somebody else's.
And going back to the Air Force, how long were you in the Air Force?
I was in for 4 years, spent 1 year in Illinois in training, 1 full year of training. And then they moved us to upstate New York, to Plattsburgh, New York, where we spent 3 years. They offered me some money to stay in, but we decided that it was time to go and work in the commercial world.
And you only worked on the flight simulators while you were in the Air Force?
Yes, but when you say you worked on the flight simulators, there were 4 different computers. There was avionics equipment. There was a cockpit, if you will, that looked like it came out of the FB-111A, which is the aircraft that we were simulating. We could simulate 14 degrees of motion with hydraulics. So there's a lot of pieces that you worked on, not just computers, but other things that you had to troubleshoot and look at.
And you were only doing that one airplane for the simulators?
Correct. Yeah, I specialized in the FB-111A. There was a KC-135 tanker that I would help on, but that wasn't my focus.
So after you taught, after you taught, what did you do?
After I retired from teaching, we've been spending time with the family and working around the house and getting things in order, trying to look at what do we want to do in retirement. This summer I drove a 1965 car across country to Las Vegas, and then got home, and my wife and I then went out to the East Coast to visit family out there.
So you're planning on doing a lot of traveling?
We hope to do a lot more traveling. We hope to go to Ireland next year and a few other places that's been on the bucket list.
And if you were to go back from the beginning before the Air Force, what was something else you wanted to do?
Something else? Well, I wanted to be a chemical engineer like my dad. And I focused on that in the first year of college as well as engineering. And I found out that I was okay at chemistry, but I was much better at the engineering part. And so the first year of college helped direct me. And then when I was in high school, I was also in college at the same time, the last 2 years. And that gave me a focus a little bit of what you wanted to do and where you wanted to go.
It gave you a head start, early head start?
It gave me a start. And then, I was working at Chrysler and going to school. And we had to make some decisions and, weren't sure. My scholarship came through, but it was a little bit late, so I decided to enlist in the Air Force. And that's when the scholarship came through, but we already had to make decisions, and sometimes that's the best way to do it.
Was there anybody else in your family who was in the National Guard or something?
My sister Tiffany was in the Air Force. Other than that, I have a brother-in-law that was in the Marines and a few other people that were in the various Navy, Air Force, Marines.
Do you think that they were introduced to it by you, or was it their own decision?
I think my sister Tiffany definitely was influenced by it. The others, I don't know. I mean, the draft had just been abolished after I enlisted. So nobody was forced to go into the service at that point. A lot of people went in thinking, okay, they'll take care of me, but some people don't like being told what to do. And they have to learn that they want to make their own decisions. Other people, this is your job, do it, and you're done.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm Jack Mitchell, and thank you for watching People in Perspective. See you next time.